know what's funny? Most people think that you can't really learn a language unless you live abroad. That you have to move to Spain to learn Spanish, Portugal to learn Portuguese, or to France to master French. And honestly, I used to believe that too. But here's the truth. I didn't become fluent by living abroad. I became fluent before I ever got on a plane. When I was still living in Poland, surrounded by friends who didn't speak a word of Spanish, I started experimenting with what I now call mental immersion. It wasn't about where I was physically, it was about where my attention was. And somehow, little by little, Spanish started to feel like part of my everyday life. I would catch myself thinking in it. I would talk to myself while cooking. I would play songs I didn't understand just to feel the rhythm of the words, and even started to dream in it once or twice. Then, later when I eventually did travel to different corners of the world, I realized something. The reason I could connect with people so fast wasn't because I had suddenly moved abroad. It was because I had already built that word in my head, long before I arrived. So today I want to show you exactly how you can do that, how to get fluent without living abroad, how to surround yourself with a language right from your own room, and how to train your brain to think like a local even when you're thousands of kilometers away. Part 1. The myth of you have to live abroad. Let's start with the biggest myth in language learning, the idea that immersion only happens overseas. Here's the thing. Living abroad helps, but it's not a magic bullet. I've met plenty of people who lived in Spain or Italy for years and still can't hold a conversation in the local language. Why? Because they didn't actually immerse themselves. They lived in the country but in an English bubble, English friends, English Netflix, English thinking. Meanwhile, I've met people who never left their hometown yet spoke fluently because they made that language their mental environment. For me, it started with curiosity. I have met few people online, precisely it was Couchsurfing portal, who would send me voice notes. I couldn't reply in full sentences at first, but I would listen to them over and over, repeating their tone and their rhythm. That was my early version of immersion. It wasn't about location, it was about connection. I was connecting to people, to sounds and stories. And once you understand that, everything changes. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You stop saying, I will get fluent once I moved abroad. No, you start living that language now. Part 2. How to recreate immersion at home. So how do you actually do it? For me, it came down to 4 pillars: listening, speaking, environment, and mindset. Listening first. I surrounded myself with the language everywhere I could. I switched my phone to Spanish. I replaced my morning YouTube videos with Spanish podcasts. I played Latin music while cleaning, while driving, while doing literally anything. At first, it was all noise. I didn't understand much, but then slowly the sounds started forming patterns. I would recognize the way someone said "sabes" at the end of every sentence, or how Argentinians said "vos" instead of "tú." When I later came to Spain for a diving job, I remember my co-workers, local from the Canary Islands, and some Argentinian friends, laughing at how fast I caught their slang. But the truth is, I had been training my ears for months before I even met them. I would say what I was doing. For example, I'm making coffee, I'm leaving the house, I forgot my keys. It sounds crazy, but it works. Then I started shadowing, repeating lines from series or YouTube videos in real time, matching the rhythm and accent to my best capabilities. Then came environment. I literally made my space multilingual. Sticky notes everywhere. Mirror, door, window. My playlists were bilingual, my Netflix interface was in Spanish, I even changed series language. And finally, mindset. You can't treat the language like a school subject. It's not homework, it's a lifestyle. Once I stopped studying it like a grammar and started living it like a culture, everything clicked. Part 3. My daily routine when I was learning alone. Let me tell you what a typical day looked like back then. Morning coffee, Spanish podcast. Gym, Spanish playlist. Lunch, short YouTube vlog or a telenovela scene. Evening, 20 minutes of speaking to myself or recording a voice note to a friend abroad. I wasn't studying for hours, I was just living my day, but in another language. Some evenings I would message my friends from Argentina or Mexico, asking about the expressions I heard. They would laugh at my mistakes, send me voice messages correcting me, and those were golden. I would mimic them again and again until it stuck. That's how you stay consistent when you're learning alone. Not by forcing study time, but by building habits that don't feel like studying. Part 4. Speaking practice when no one around speaks it. This one is huge because it's what most learners struggle with. I had months when literally no one around me spoke Spanish. So I created fake conversations. I would imagine situations, ordering food, meeting someone, telling a story, and I would role play both sides, of course in my mind. Sometimes I would record myself and then listen the next day to notice mistakes. Other times I would use online platforms to find the language partners, but only after I felt ready enough to hold a small talk. And here is a small secret. Speaking to yourself is actually better than jumping into random conversations too early. Why? Because you control the flow. You get comfortable forming sentences before facing real-life pressure. By the time I got to Tenerife and started working with Canarians, the transition was smooth. I would already built my muscle memory for speaking. Now it was just about adapting to the rhythm and slang. Part 5. Turning your mind into an immersive environment. At some point, immersion becomes internal. You stop forcing it, you just think in the language naturally. For me, it happened gradually. I would be walking through Venice thinking about what to cook later, and my inner voice was in Spanish. Or I would watch an Italian movie and random Portuguese words would pop up in my head. That's when you know that your brain has accepted the language as part of your identity. To help myself with that, I made a rule: no translation. Whenever I learn a new word, I would connect it to an image or a feeling, not to a Polish or English word. For example, instead of thinking mesa means table, I would just visualize sitting at the mesa. That mental association builds natural fluency. It's what kids do when learning their first language. Part 6. Mistakes to avoid. The first, consuming passively. It's easy to watch hours of content in your target language and call it learning. But if you're not engaged, you're not really learning. Pause, repeat, mimic, take notes. Second, perfectionism. You will never speak perfectly, not even natives do. I've had moments when my accent slipped mid-sentence or I mixed Spanish with Italian. And guess what? People still understood me. Third, comparing progress. Everyone's path is different. I learned Portuguese way faster because of Spanish, but French took me forever. That's normal. Part 7. The moment it clicked. There was this one evening in Tenerife. We would finish a dive sitting on the beach with my Canarian and Argentinian friends. Everyone was chatting quickly, laughing, using slang I didn't know, and I realized I was understanding everything. Not word by word, not translating, just feeling the conversation. That's when it hit me. Immersion isn't a place, it's a mindset. So if you're learning a new language right now and you think you need to move abroad to get fluent, you don't. You can build immersion right where you are. Make your phone multilingual, fill your world with voices, music, culture, and live that language every single day. Because once your brain starts living it, fluency becomes inevitable. And if this video helped you even a little, drop a comment telling me where you're learning from and what language you're diving into. I love reading your stories.